Stop, collaborate, and
Yeah.
listen.
Exactly.
Leadership DM, Jay Scott's direct message to his team and clients. Learn how anyone like you can become an irreplaceable leader of unstoppable teams. Today's leadership direct message is from Jay Scott, directly from his latest article drop from his 5 Multiplier Behaviors series, Unleashing the Irreplaceable, based on Wiseman's Multipliers. We're going to debate his key points and share some experiences about the debate maker. Who the hell am I? I'm Andrew McGuire. I am the co-founder of Brick and Matter, as well as the experienced marketing lead for 120 VC.
Hey, everybody. I am Faith Crossman. I am the Chief Marketing Execution Lead for 120 VC. I make sure we get shit done so we can get shit done.
That's right. You are watching this or listening to this because of the mind control work that Faith has done to get you here. Okay, let's dive into it. If you haven't already, download this article, The Debate Maker, where opinion evolves into optimal solutions. I don't know about you, Faith, but my first take on this was debate. I thought, is there room for debate in the modern workplace? I mean, we talked the last couple of weeks about psychological safety. Sometimes we're told, be quiet, stay in your swim lane. And then, of course, in environments where there's more like command control, top-down kind of leaders, it's not always a free thing to discuss. But then at the same time, for me, I've been in work environments where it's the opposite. Everything's by consensus. We're going to debate. Everybody talk through the ideas and then kind of nothing gets done. Is debate up for debate in the modern workplace? What's been your experience in that?
That we definitely live in a professional environment where everyone is expected to save face and be polite and don't debate. That's going to ruffle feathers. But at the end of the day, we're all, as Jay Scott says, human beings, and what a human beings fundamentally want to succeed.
Let's address what debate maker isn't, the false debate maker.
I feel like we're put in this dog-eat-dog world environment where we need to debate, we need to fight in order to get our thoughts, feelings, opinions out there, but we have to do it in a way that is, politically correct in the corporate environment or the work world. And I think that's such a great aspect of this article, and that is we're not here to win or lose or break each other down and fight to the end to find that success that we're looking for. That would be, as Jay says, that's false debate maker mentality. And so for him to bring up that kind of real debate maker mentality is quite the game changer, where it's not about winners and losers. It's about fighting people who can prove their intellectual superiority to work together, to collaborate together, not tear each other down, which is not a concept I think a lot of people are familiar with.
Because I've seen that that false debate maker, not even with individuals within an organization, but I've seen it when I worked in the large ad agency scene, right? There was always as a creative director and then working against other departments, they had the accounts or the suits as they're called in Mad Men, and then the strategy group or whatever. But there was almost this, we were one team, but also there was this one-upmanship of sorts of debating who has the right angle. Is it the strategic way in? Is it the business argument? Or is it even just the project management? It's the only winner is getting it done at this time. We're trying to defend that it needs to be done right. So I really think this way to debate not to be right applies not only for individuals as we're communicating horizontally within the organization or within our teams, but within the organization to other departments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you had any experience in interdepartmental squabbles and debates.
Well, there's the tale as old as time, and that is the squabble between marketing and sales. And so that's definitely a great example in the aspect of the winners and the losers, or the debate of who's doing what, when, how, etc. And having that leader there that turns those meetings, it says here, turns meetings into turf wars, it's so common, and I've seen it a million times before. Especially in pinning departments against each other. And it's usually because it's the one leader who is frazzled and maybe unclear, unaligned with what their different departments are doing. And so they're asking what department is doing more. And so there's that, the departments need to impress or prove themselves to that leader who is essentially that false debate maker, doesn't know quite how to lead that conversation.
Right. I know for me, I've been that false debate maker myself in different places too, because it just kind of gets in you. I mean, that's like the American thing, like to be right, to win your turf, and the old saying, like, you could be right, but dead wrong or whatever, or dead right.
Yep.
That could tend to happen with that false debater mindset. Again, whether it's debating departments up or down. But I guess before we get into like how Jay defines the real debate maker, the thought I kind of had was, like, is it even okay to debate? I think debating ideas, like one of the previous episodes, we talked about how the challenger challenges the work, not the people. So I think if the debate is framed in a similar way, where you're adding those two multiplier behaviors together, you're really kind of debating the work, whether it's debating the value or merit of it, right? Is it improve customer satisfaction, team member satisfaction, and profitability? And then debating the best way to do it, maybe doing through like the rule of 10, right? Like getting the 10 different
Yeah.
ideas of, is it this and that? And so I think, to me, in my experience in the creative field, agency world, that was the most fun when you had that freedom, whether even if it was with people in the account side, the strategy side, debating those different things where there's freedom to do it, because that's how you get to innovation, right? You can't make an omelet without cracking some eggs. So being able, though, to provide that I think that kind of debate's allowed.
Well, like, to your point, that's an interesting way to look at it. Instead of debating each other, like, to the point of challenging the work rather than the people, you're debating the work rather than the people. You, as the people, as the team, as the organization, you are the team. And you can get into quote unquote debate and discussion that about the work, about the task, about the outcomes that can benefit, but you're doing it together as a team. You're using that collective IQ as a group to come to that final outcome, and probably an even better outcome if you're choosing to debate or challenge the work rather than the people.
So the question in my mind easily goes to, like, the customer's always right. And so, as a director, your customer's like the VP director above you, or the board if you're in the C-suite, or sometimes your boss is the client and the client's always right. So we might say in like today's modern polite society of like, you don't debate. So it's not in the debate in the sense of like a political debate where you're researching to be right. Like, but there is a power play, or there should be, if you're challenging the status quo to move things forward. And so that's why I was fired up about this article, because you have to have these conversations if you're going to disrupt the status quo and make things happen. So when Jay frames the real debate maker, he provides tools to do this. So let's get into that.
The purpose of the real debate maker is to leverage the collective IQ of the team to service the best possible solution. Not the easiest or the fastest solution, but the one that will serve the situation best in both the short and the long term.
Oh my gosh. You got to be like freaking Yoda here.
What do you mean?
Or as George W. once said, I'm a uniter, not a divider. But you got to leverage the collective IQ to service the best possible solution. And I think, for me, the very first thing is you have to check your ego at the door to do that, right? Because that's first, you have to admit, I guess, that you are not the smartest person in the room, but that the room is the smartest person in the room. And hopefully you've, because even if you're surrounded by idiots, the collective IQ will still be smarter than just yours, unless they're really, really, really low IQ.
Okay, so I want you to think of a time that you sat in a room with a collective IQ, okay? You understand that it is not just you who is brainstorming, it's not just you who's putting all of this effort together into completing a task to finding an outcome. And what happened?
Oh, man. In my experience, even when you have tons of collective IQ, you have a room full of diverse voices and geniuses. Often, even when there is debate, if you will, exchanging of ideas and challenging of ideas, it'll either swirl, it'll just talk in circles, or what a lot of times, I don't know if you've seen this happen, like, it's just the two loudest personalities, or three in the room, that actually exchange and dominate the conversation. And so when I would lead creative brainstorms with teams, whether we're thinking up a Super Bowl commercial idea or our next campaign, we'd bat around ideas. And sometimes you get that nice exchange, and it's like Mad Men, and it's like, yes, then we do this. And, and it's all exciting. Or sometimes you get stubbed, or like someone just starts monologuing. So one of the things we'd add structure to the brainstorm. First off, we start with a creative brief, and we would attack the problem in different things,
Mm.
or in every case, we're looking at it through the customer's eyes. But one of the more powerful tools we would do is, instead of just passing the mic conch shell around talking, is we'd all write immediate. We would get little challenges, and we would write 10 different ideas as fast as we can on Post-its. And then we would share them out one by one, and then we'd build on each other's ideas versus stepping on each other. So you kind of start with something. So in each
Mhm.
case, like having structure to guide the conversation, as well as, of course, an objective like a creative brief, or what we use at 120. We have our structure. We have our 3 pillars. They must improve customer satisfaction, team member satisfaction, and profitability. And then, of course, we will have, a project brief or business set challenge that we're doing laid on top of that. So it really guides the conversation. But specifically to brainstorming at the end of it, so you don't leave the room empty-handed, the structure we use, that Jay talks about in the article here, is the 1-3-1.
3-1 is a one-page proposal that defines the problem, why we're all in the room, what are we there talking about. It explores 3 solutions and recommends one. This tool is killer in the aspect of maintaining that organization, and finding and getting that team, that collective IQ and group together to once again, challenge the work, debate the work, not the people, and get to that final solution that has been vetted. And it's been vetted against the 3 pillars. It's been vetted against the leader who is encouraging this and encouraging the team. And then at the end of the day, it's presenting that final, well thought out, best solution to that problem, instead of just sitting and taking that hour to fluff, which at the end of the day never really gets us all anywhere. I know we can all agree on
Right?
that.
And it uses the time-tested rules of 3. People remember 3 things.
Mm,
But having those 3, like, because you don't just do your first 3 ideas, you 10x, 10 different ideas.
mhm,
As Jay's said before, like, research shows that really the best ideas are usually between 6 and 10.
mm,
And having one clear recommendation. And what's great about this framework is it's this simple. It could be an email. It doesn't have to be a big long document. It could be a total of 5 sentences long. A problem
mm,
sentence, 3 ideas, and one recommend. Like, it could be that. Really, you could tweet problem solve like this. That's what's so
mhm.
great about this tool, is that it's a very simple tool to do that and to guide thinking.
Is it takes that What's great about it too is it takes those individuals who are so willing to just toss out one idea, and it asks them to reach a little further in. Why? Because you stopped, you thought about it, and it wasn't a reactionary solution to this problem. It was actually an opportunity where you sat down, thought it out, and it was one of those solutions that is going to bring an outcome that's not just reactionary, which is awesome.
So I think of like Vanilla Ice. Stop, collaborate, and
Yeah.
listen.
Exactly.
Or I'm just gonna do all the rappers. It's a way to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Like
Yeah.
check your ideas. So I don't know. I'm a man of a certain age, so I have a bunch of '90s rap references. Um, well, all right. So what happens in the room? Again, it's not the debate maker, like the 2 podiums in a political debate, but it's really just being able to like read the room and really engage people. So for that, in the
Well,
article, Jay breaks down the 5 steps of active listening, because that's really what it is listening interpersonally, whether it be in that Zoom room, in the office itself. How do you get to those good ideas? How do you
mm,
communicate and debate ideas? Because if you're not debating ideas, or what was the old, I think it was Winston Churchill quote, like, if we both thought the same, one of us would be redundant. So we need the
mhm,
perspectives of other people. I always like to use the metaphor of like the old, like, trust me, I'm not this old, but if you remember the old 3D films where you would wear like
mm,
the 3D glasses and you had one lens that was blue, one that was red. If you just look
mhm.
through one, everything's red, everything's blue, but when you look
Yeah.
through together, you get depth. And so that's why we need to debate. Well, that's why we need to have different perspectives. And so a great tool
Mhm,
to get to that, because the hardest thing about people are people. Like,
mm,
so he breaks down the 5 steps to active listening, because really it's listening to the other person to get those viewpoints. Otherwise, you're only going to see red
mhm.
or blue.
Yes. Yes.
So what are those 5 steps of active listening?
All right. Questioning, reflecting, empathizing, clarifying, and summarizing.
Um,
I know we all can think of that one person who is staring you directly in your eyes when you are trying to talk to them.
like the too much eye contact person, you're like, or the no eye
Yeah, but
contact person that's like,
there's a blankness, there's an emptiness in their eyes because they are listening to you, but they're thinking about what they're going to say next, right?
the
And
next
so most
question,
of the
yes.
time, yeah. And the thing is that when you are communicating with someone and sharing your thoughts and ideas and they come back at you with a question, hug them. No, ask their permission, then hug them. Because that just shows such just awesome active listening because it's so important to understanding what someone is saying.
Yeah, you're spot on. And as Jay
I
says,
can't.
like,
It's not well.
what kind of questions? It's like open-ended questions, not yes or no, obvious. But
Mm,
really, we love to quote ourselves some Ted Lasso around here. It's like being curious, not judgmental. So you could ask
mhm.
a question, knowing a leading question to frame them, but it's asking with curiosity, specifically when you're engaging subject matter experts on how they will complete the work. So if you're leading a team, I'm reaching out to a video editor who's going to edit this, right? I'm going to be like, cool. Good luck editing this conversation with Faith and I. And they'll be like, no, totally, I got it. So I might want to ask a question like, well, how will you complete the work? Walk me through it. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm like, cool. Now I know that they've thought it out. And then if, from my years of experience, I might be able to be like, oh, well, cool. Maybe do it this way or that way. But anyway, so it's how you ask questions
Mhm.
and
That
then
makes
reflecting what you heard
empathizing.
back, number two, right? Jay tells a
Yeah.
story about like, you could have those conversations where you question and answer, and then you record one thing with your brain and they record something else. And that's why you always have the like he said, she said, sort of like, well, I heard it differently. So reflecting, whether you're reflecting audibly back, like, cool, what I hear you saying, Faith, is that we're doing this. And you'd be like,
Mhm.
well, indubitably, Andrew, I hear you saying this, and we're gonna do this. So there's that, but then of course you reflect back maybe like in that follow-up email. That's why that's powerful about meeting notes is you can be like, cool, this is what we discussed and why. Because guess what? You're gonna go to the next meeting and the next meeting and the next meeting, and by the end of the day, I don't even remember like my middle name anymore. And
Mm.
so but by reflecting back, then you kind of have that agreement and those commitments down.
And then when something doesn't make sense, empathizing with them that just because their message is unclear at the moment doesn't mean that there can't be clarity between you and that individual, which is really important and I think kind of difficult, especially this day and age and emailing and maybe Zoom conversations and all this stuff. We're all trying to get things done and share messages so quickly in order to get to the end result. And there are going to be times where you're like, what the heck is this person saying? But that's what these 5 steps of active listening do for leaders and for teams. And that is presenting clarity, presenting alignment, and bringing that humanity back to the conversation. And that is, hey, I'm asking questions here. I'm trying to get clarity by reflecting, but I'm still a little bit lost. Is this what you're saying? If it's not what you're saying, here is my empathy towards you to give you the opportunity to clear it up for me, not you. It's not on you. But let's just get aligned together.
Right.
And just take that moment. I know that the days are fast, and I know that we've all got a million things to try to squeeze into 8 hours, but we're all still humans, and this is that important key to communication is that active listening and that empathy.
Oh, I love that. I think for me, a great way of getting at that empathy is instead of just asking, even just like, well, I don't get it, help me understand. And I don't know about you, that like sometimes when people are like, I don't get it, help me understand. And so what do? You literally will just say the exact same thing you just said,
Yeah.
but maybe louder or maybe longer or maybe slower. So I think a good way to
Mhm.
empathize is to ask it differently, right? We always talk about
Mhm.
like if you want a different result, you got to I got to ask for
Mhm.
different behavior. So in a way, as Jay frames it up here, is ask them to help you see how it works. And this is where our experience shares are really powerful for establishing that empathy, because you'd be like, well, can you tell me about a time when you did that and maybe why?
Mhm.
Because then instead of them being like, we're going to do it this way, they could be like, well, actually, because when I was working on this project back in the day, we experienced this, this, and this. And from my experience, this is how we got to it. And then now I can connect to their experience where it doesn't feel like they're being they or you are being prescriptive and saying and shooting on them like this is how you should do it. Instead, it's like, well, in my experience, and then more times than not, when you tell a real human experience and story, you could kind of see yourself in that story. You're like, oh yeah, my gosh, yeah, I was in a boardroom like that once, and the CEO was like losing his fucking mind, like. So that's a great way to empathize. So,
yeah, absolutely.
and then clarifying.
Well, once again, that's just that aspect of good communication between you and the individual. And once those questions have been asked, once that reflection has happened, and maybe a little bit of empathy, if there is a little bit of confusion there, you take that opportunity then, if they're going to take the time to maybe repeat themselves or rephrase what they had to say for you to understand, then you need to also have that same respect and gain that trust by repeating back to them what you think and believe that you are hearing, getting that clarity of, so your plan is this, or okay, so you believe this. Am I hearing this correctly? Is that right? And having that kind of moment of connection between you and the individual, which 90% of the time when you follow these steps and you get to this step, you're going to see that relief on their face, and they're like, yeah, we're together, we're in sync, we've got this. Which then brings us to summarizing, and that is the summary between you and the individual, where you discuss on what the conversation was as a whole, what you understood, what they understood, what you agreed on, what the next steps are, and you have more alignment than you probably will ever have in any conversation. You can get through these 5 steps in 5, 10, 15-minute conversation in order to gain that alignment. You just have to have that patience, empathy, and understanding of the individual you're speaking with.
Totally. I mean, summarizing could be a quick wrap up sentence in the conversation. It could be the meeting notes from the meeting, but the idea is just to really kind of close that loop of the who, what, when, and by when, because if you don't establish that, that urgency and deadline is probably one of the most important things in summarizing it. So everybody has actionable steps. It's that whole process from collaboration to alignment, right? So you use the 1-3-1 to collaborate to get to ideas. You get alignment through active listening. You're really unpacking. You've gone from collaboration through alignment, but really at the end of the day, it's about action. It's the payoff. Yes, it's making that psychological safe place to have that curiosity, to use different tools like we discussed to facilitate this conversation. But the end result here is not consensus, actually. Sometimes it's how we define debating is great, so we all agree on this, right? But I don't know about you, but when I have 5 people in a room, I have 5 opinions, and sometimes they shift, and there's a vote for somebody. It's like every election. It's like you're holding your nose and voting for the least stinky candidate, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, in the debate maker, in our sense, isn't really always about consensus, because if we all agree, that you're going to take forever to get to a decision, and then if everybody likes it, then chances are it's going to be boring and vanilla. So it's not about consensus, but finding the best way by the criteria that you set up to move forward, and removing competition again by that criteria that you set forward. If it's the 3 pillars or in using this framework, it's about committing together and clarifying what those next steps are to have action. Because if you wait for consensus, projects will never get off the ground.
The debate maker isn't just a leader who is sitting people down in a room and asking them to find the best solution to a problem, which will inevitably turn into a debate of who is right and who is wrong. But it is that leader who sits people down with guardrails. Why are we doing this? How are we doing this? By when are we doing this? That leader, that debate maker, is the person who is creating debate in a sense, but they're doing it with guardrails that is going to inevitably end in a solution and outcomes that everyone can get on board with, instead of just people tossing ideas out into the room.
It's moving from debate to action, because you can get stuck in that swirl of debating. So us leaders adopting this debate maker behavior, yes, we bring our passion, and we want to engage and actively listen and bring the passions of all of our experts on our team to get to the best solution to move the ball forward down the field. And so it's using the tools to harness that expertise and that passion together, that fierce exchanging of ideas, but in service of action. All right, that's it for Leadership DM. It was not the same without Jay, but it was. Jay was here not only in spirit, but in his written article here. And so this article is great. Get the link to it in the caption here and the full articles in this series. So you could also learn how to become a multiplier and have that multiplier effect on your team. The next episode, we will be finishing up the multiplier series with the investor, the last of the 5 multiplier behaviors that Liz Wiseman outlines in her book and Jay builds upon from 20 plus years of experience of leading transformational projects for Fortune 500 companies with 227% better results. So you're not going to want to miss that. You're not going to miss any Leadership DM. So make sure you subscribe. Smash that subscribe button if you're on YouTube so you don't miss any of these. And we will see you on the very next Leadership DM. Zoom high 5.
Woo!